Okay, so you have the big conference coming up in Las Vegas here for Casey Research. Can you give us some idea of what you're going to be talking about with regard to profiting from the world's economic crisis?
Yes. If you lose confidence in the dollar, what you need to do as an investor is not have your money in the bank, but buy the only true money, namely gold. But it's worse than just that in the situation that we're in. And I want to leave a little parallel here. Greece, you mentioned very effectively, is a bellwether, much like Lehman Brothers in the early stages of the private crisis. And if the government crisis gets out of control and people lose confidence in paper money, you have a double whammy problem when you recognize that the amount of energy created by the fossil fuel laid down over 100 million years has been about half used up. So we're at a situation where I think the peace and prosperity of the last 50-plus years is about to be disrupted by competition for scarce natural resources, which is the other set of investments.
Yeah, but you can't put all your money in gold. It's difficult to actually to buy anything using gold. It's hard to crate around. I mean, I'd floor them at the car dealership if I wanted to trade my car in and pay the difference in gold.
Well, sure. That you can't do that with even General Motors stock either. You go to your broker and sell it, and you take the money and go buy the gold. That's the same. Go buy the car. Same thing with owning investments in energy, which I'm recommending, and recognize that agriculture, in some sense, is absolutely dependent on energy to be produced.
Sure.
When my father grew up on a farm, half the country were farmers. Now 3% of our population produces more than all the food we need, and that became possible because of energy. So energy is very closely linked to food, and investments in agriculture is another way to go.
The book has just been released. It's called Profiting from the World's Economic Crisis. It's written by our guest Bud Conrad here on the Gabriel Wisdom Show on the Business Talk Radio Network. 262 charts and tables, 446 pages. Bud, you've got historical data here to explain how the system works and to position where we are in the credit and currency cycles. These are cycles. When's the last time something like this occurred?
Well, currency crisis has almost never occurred in the United States, but it happens about every generation in most large countries. And so in terms of when this is happening, I think it's happening now here, but we can also see it in Greece, although it's more complicated with euro, and certainly every banana republic of Latin America in about a generation ago. Many communist countries also had them, and we're just going to go through another one of those kind of messes.
Today, an ounce of gold will buy 64 ounces of silver. I understand that the historical ratio has been around 16 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. So doesn't that make silver comparatively cheap to gold?
It does, and the pattern that silver has followed is to be even more volatile, both on the up and the downside than gold. But gold is the more obvious pick, but all the metals, copper is much higher than it has been, platinum, palladium, and so forth. The resources are all part of that. Let me think one more thing. I live in Silicon Valley, so technology is the thing I watch and that I lived with when I grew up in community. In terms of how that will change our future, the brains are really the hope for humanity because we need new energy sources. We have fabulous opportunities in the biotechnology area, and we've done wonderful things with communication. I just got an iPad the other day and love it. It's a life changer to have these new kinds of devices for computers and communication.
Sure.
And all of those things are the differentiation between us and our big economic competitors in Asia, who seem to be smarter than we are about how to use these, how to put these things into practice.
But you mentioned interest rates. They're likely to rise as the dollar falls based on what I'm reading in your book, Profiting from the World's Economic Crisis. How high do you think they go? The last time they went vertical was 1983, 84, as I recall.
Yeah, really around the turn of that decade, peak 82. But the point was that they got into the almost 20% for short-term money, and I think that our economic forces are in worse shape than then. We didn't have a serious accumulated debt in either the international trade situation or the government situation, So I think over the decade ahead, and this is what I call my play of the decade, expecting interest rates to rise is one of the things that people can invest in. And in the book, I explain a bit how.
Bud, you say interest rates will start going higher, and they'll go a lot higher possibly than anything we saw in the early 80s?
Yes, the situation is that our government deficits are now very close in size, around 10 to 12%, to the Greece deficits at around 12 to 13%, and not far from what would be the level at which you'd be in a lot of trouble. They also had an even worse trade deficit than we did as a share of GDP, but we are the world's largest debtor just because we're the largest economy as well, and that trade debt has been supported by foreigners who want to sell us their goods. So they've been in kind of a vendor refinancing by supporting our currency. Oddly, our government is going out and telling the Chinese, go smash our currency, raise the price of your currency. But you cannot succeed on a long term by going into debt. You don't create wealth by creating debt.
No, but we've had years and years of declining interest rates. Prior to that, we had many years of rising rates. Prior to that cycle, rates fell, they rose. From what I can tell, they rise and fall in 20-year spans. When do they begin to rise based on your forecasts, and how high do they go?
Well, we're already off the bottoms in the longer-term rates in the sense that at the end of 2008, we hit 2% on the 10-year, and we're now at about 3.8% on the 10-year. But I think it's a long-term problem that is so serious that I call it beyond the point of return. We have so much debt already accumulated and no backbone to stop accumulating more. With baby boomer retirement of $75 trillion obligation that there is no way to make, the dollar will continue to collapse. And in my lifetime, I expect the dollar will have to be repudiated, just like what we're going to see in some of the weak European countries. So
do you
watch
think
that as a pattern for how it's going to go here.
But do you think there's any chance that you're wrong, or do you believe you'll be 100% right?
Let me tell you, anybody who tells you they know 100% of anything about the future is lying to you.
That's why I was hoping you'd say so, and I knew you would.
And I am one of the first, because I do a lot of that prognostication. I was about 80% right on my prediction.
That's plenty good. Hey, the book is called Profiting from the World's Economic Crisis. It's written by our guest, Bud Conrad.